of the Cabot House questline. Long before the bombs fell, Lorenzo was a world-renowned archaeologist, with a specific interest in ancient non-human civilizations that predate our own. According to his son, Jack, who is also very old, though just maybe 40 years younger, sometime in the mid-19th century, Lorenzo embarked on an expedition to
fucked up, like whatever, that's your own personal thing. But ultimately, it's like deviating from what is like his normal, is all I'm trying to say. The fact that he's deviating to something that is not what his brain otherwise used to be stimulated by, and now this thing that was otherwise his normal is now no longer satisfactory, and he's no longer like even turned on by it. It goes to show that he's What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be checking out this off-topic thread in the steroids subreddit called "Why the fuck is Trent turning me homosexual?" Substantiated_hatred posted this on Instagram, and you know, like obviously a thread like this is going to resurface and get attention. Here it is. So. Yeah, for this guy, he's on Trent. It's bringing out his weird fetishes. He's craving sucking dick 24/7, but only trannies. And it's even making him want to get fucked in the ass. He's legitimately on Tinder about to get fucked by a crossdresser. What to do? Should he go through with it or just jack off instead? Now, like, is this a troll post or is this legitimate? Like, I think you'd be surprised how fucked up the minds of guys get who are on gear. Like, first of all, I'll actually get into the science. Like, this is not a joke of a title. Like, I'm actually going to explain why this guy might be getting homosexual tendencies or just be, you know, I don't know, like craving more like exotic, not mainstream shit as a result of his exposure to certain hormones. Because this does happen, you know, like we've seen Big Lenny is one of the most outspoken, you know, sauce fiends who just doesn't give a fuck about exposing his own, you know, personal crazy fetishes and shit. And he talks about his experiences with transsexuals and whatnot all the time. And Tony Huge also, you know, seems to not give a fuck. Although it's a bit different than Lenny with, you know, the context in terms of what situations they would be, you know, like willing to do it in or whatever. But anyways, regardless, there are individuals who use these kind of like exotic hormones that end up with neurological changes and adaptations to their kind of like sexual appetites and watch more increasingly odd porn, which we're going to get into shortly. Bro, what? Top comment. You heard him. Goals by fuck_cardio. Ever heard of a guy named Big Lenny? Juicing ain't worth it, bruz. Bruz. You don't know Ziz? Honestly, though, this post aside, it isn't. Fit. More plates, more dates. Average Reddit moment. Anon is gay. He's turning into Big Lenny. More plates, more dates. Wow, fucking hugely upvoted. Love this guy, Derek. Please, Mr. Delph, make a video on this. Me. Like, no, dude, an efficacious dose of jacking off will get you a super physiological post-nut clarity. Too many Trenbologna sandwiches. What should he do? Weirdly, Deca has made a lot of guys into getting cucked. Another video, by the way, in the pipeline. Tren is the gay juice. Average Redditor. Juicing is worth it, but not if you get the side effect, LMAO. Drugs turn you gay? Oh wow, never heard that one before. Should have stuck with the D-ball instead. Tren moment. Tren? Oof, most heterosexual gear user. Dangerously based. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. So I actually went and dug up this thread to see if it's still alive and kicking. It was deleted by the moderators. However, all the comments are still there. TRT, trend replacement therapy. Let's see. Are there any actual legitimate insights? Congratulations, your sexuality is on a spectrum and you are feeling hornier and less inhibited than normal. Is it making you gay? Probably not. Did you have subconscious desires previously that are bumped up to the surface? Maybe. You also could be digging way too deep in the porn web, craving more and more unique taboo fetishes because you're getting more and more desensitized by normal pornography. Maybe take a porn tea break reset. If you still want to chase trannies, probably better to know if you were actually bi or just addicted to porn. Okay, so, a lot of insight in here about, what's going on and shit. Mostly people just making fun of him or saying dumb stuff. But there is actual scientific insight into this. And the comment I just read is not that, it's part of it, in my opinion. So first of all, when you take exogenous anabolic steroids and you increase your androgen profile to multiple fold higher than what you naturally produce endogenously, what is this increased androgenic signaling going to do? Well, if you've ever tried gear, you know that within your first few weeks, it feels like you just hit puberty again. Like your sex drive goes through the fucking roof. It feels like you're back in high school and you have fucking raging random hard-ons, and that's all you can think about. You'll note that as you go through puberty, everything's kind of like at its peak. And then even though you have like pretty fucking prime T levels in your early mid-20s, you start to notice your, sexual, ridiculous over the top sexual, outbursts, or I don't know what to call it, just like random fucking pent up sexual energy essentially sort of diminishes, despite the fact that on paper, your hormone levels may not be reflective of that necessarily. Now, obviously this will differ for certain individuals, and some people that get addicted to porn and weird fucked up shit, will fuck their brains and make it so they have, far more exaggerated, sexual appetites despite having slightly lower androgenic signaling. But in general, when you're adapting to a new stimulus, your brain's in like a hyper-stimulated state that it's not yet adapted to. You get like a heightened level of like, I'm super fucking horny. And it's almost reflective of or representative of what is like going through puberty again when you get on your first cycle. Does this last forever? No. A lot of you guys will note, within your first, 6 to 8 weeks of your first cycle, you get fucking through the roof horny.
Choose the next level. Play now.
I bet no one can survive these levels.
Well, yes. Nice. Wow. Yes. No. Wow. Yes. No. Huh?
Download and solve the puzzles now.
But every cycle down the line, did you get that same, giant burst? No, not necessarily. But again, with Tren, is it different than just using, a fat dose of test or something? Yeah, it is. And this is through its progestogenic signaling, which we'll get into shortly. So first of all, This guy is increasing his androgen profile by multiple fold higher than what he naturally produces. That in itself is going to significantly heighten his libido. Above and beyond that, there are a lot of androgen users that get addicted to porn. And when they get addicted to porn, not only does it desensitize them in real life to a point that they could have like a hot chick in their bed and they don't even really respond that well to it because they're so used to watching like fucked up shit on, the hub or whatever. And they end up, or like more fucked up sites because maybe the hub is too mainstream for the shit they watch, who knows. It gets like some of these individuals end up going so down the rabbit hole that they need to watch like increasingly fucked up porn to get their brain stimulated to even like be able to get off. And then in real life situations, like normal sex with like hot women does not appeal to them the same, So this is an issue, to be honest, because it can lead to broken relationships. Like a lot of girls that are dating guys will end up in situations where their boy will obviously, like one of the main things too is hormonal imbalances and mismanaged estrogen to androgen ratios in itself could give you severe ED. As well as when you throw in tren or nandrolone into the mix, you can end up with, even if you have a good sex drive, your dick's like fucking barely functional. That's a very, very realistic outcome that happens with a lot of individuals because they don't know how to manage their fucking drugs. And then above and beyond that, guys that are cycling on and off, when they cycle off, they end up crashing their shit and they end up like borderline hypogonadal for some period of time. And they end up totally asexual essentially. And their girlfriend's wondering, oh, is it me? What's wrong with me? In reality, their boyfriend's just fucking up their hormones, like up and down all over the place. So that's one thing. And then as well, even if their cycle is dialed in, sometimes the heightened sex drive leads to such ridiculously heightened sexual appetite that they go down the porn rabbit hole to a point where they're desensitized to anything that is like quote unquote mainstream normal, and they end up watching like weird fucked up shit to, stimulate their brains again. And that like might end up taking you down the rabbit hole of some of the stuff mentioned in here. Now, if you want to consider that fucked up or not fucked up, like whatever, that's your own personal thing. But ultimately it's like deviating from what is like his normal is all I'm trying to say. The fact that he's deviating to something that is not what his brain otherwise used to be stimulated by, and now this thing that was otherwise his normal is now no longer satisfactory and he's no longer like even turned on by it, it goes to show that he's probably desensitizing himself in some aspect. I imagine porn's probably in the picture. And then above and beyond that, the progestogenic signaling from a trenbolone really, really adds fire to the fucking flames. Or not, adds gas to the flames. The fuck am I saying? Adds fire to the flames. Whatever the fucking saying. So anyways, progesterone, an often overlooked hormone that does have significant interplay in sexual preference and appetite. And there has actually been clinical data to reinforce that homosexual activity is higher in individuals that have been exposed to more progesterone. Now again, does it exactly play out like that where you're just going to take progesterone, you're going to end up becoming gay necessarily? No, but it's been found that men and women whose mothers were treated with progesterone, for example, were significantly less likely to describe themselves as just straight heterosexual, had more, diverse sexual appetites. Individuals that have more progestogenic signaling in general, especially, from like their upbringing, essentially, like if you were born literally exposed to more of this, it's more likely to be impactful of you in some permanent aspect from what I've seen. Again, this is not like a fucking cemented, guaranteed thing, but I can tell you from what the findings I found in the literature, as well as anecdotally through the years of, however many people have, made cycle logs, fucking consultations, like all this shit over the years. Trenbolone, progestogenic signaling, as well as progesterone is also used to enhance libido in guys on TRT, for example. Now, I'm not saying it will. It can actually kind of act like an anti-androgen in some cases at high enough doses, which can have a negative impact on libido. But in a neurological context, it can be a neurosteroid precursor that leads to more synthesis of things like allopregnanolone, which can significantly upregulate, sexual appetite, libido, as well as push your sexual preferences more, away from what is your normalcy. So again, progesterone exposure was found to be related to increased non-heterosexual self-identification, attraction to the same or both sexes, and same-sex sexual behavior is what is found in the literature, or at least strongly suggested. And I do think that when you're using something that is a progestogen, like trenbolone, you have to keep in mind these compounds are derived from, trenbolone is derived from nandrolone, which is a very, very potent, progestogenic compound as is trenbolone. And these things, when they agonize the progesterone receptor, think about how much progesterone you naturally produce as a male, and then think about using fucking like 400 to 600 milligrams of nandrolone or, 200, 300 milligrams of tren or something. Not only do you have heightened androgenic signaling that's already significantly enhancing your libido, probably pushing you to be more likely to watch a shit ton of porn, but above and beyond that, your progesterone receptors are being agonized way above and beyond what it would be at baseline with endogenous normal progesterone levels. Because again, you're not a fucking like fluctuating female who has significant amounts of progesterone production. You're a male with like very, very low, minuscule amounts of this shit. So you are not really used to progesterone receptor agonism in significant amounts, like above and beyond, not just super physiological, but like way the fuck beyond, like literal compounds designed to stimulate this receptor that otherwise are like barely being fucking tickled by your endogenous secretion. So you can expect when you have this like 1 + 1 = 5 effect of significantly enhanced androgenic signaling, which in itself, regardless of the compound, is probably going to increase your libido. Enhanced, estrogen as well, from your test base, or, perhaps the progestogenic activity upregulating estrogen receptor sensitivity and or aromatase activity via whatever else you're using. The science behind that is a bit more, lackluster, but again, there is significant interplay with progestogenic compounds and estrogenic activity in the body. But above and beyond that, the actual agonism of the progesterone receptor itself with these exotic compounds at dosages far exceeding what you would otherwise be able to fucking tickle the receptors with your natural progesterone production.
This is a full serving of protein powder. Dissolves instantly.
It's as easy as toss it in, shake it up, and pow! People make them with smoothies.
You can use milk, water. Some people put the vanilla in some juice.
What's nice is no sugar.
Yep, zero
absolutely.
sugar.
How many calories in this?
90 calories in a serving.
I don't drink protein powders, so educate me a little bit. Is 90 calories on par with typical protein powders?
Very lean. It's
Yep.
actually
very lean.
Yes,
So
very
our
lean.
protein is 100% whey isolate, one of the leanest proteins there are on the market. There's only 2 carbs, 1 gram of fat, and 0 sugar.
We've actually been told that we have one of the best tasting
I
protein
love
powders
it.
out
relative.
there.
It's all relative,
I
yeah.
love
Yeah,
it.
everyone has different tastes.
This is great.
I love it. I
Yes.
never
Oh
took
my God,
protein
I
before
might
we
be
started
How
this
much
company.
protein in each
serving?
20 grams of protein per serving.
When you first came in, I'm like, protein powder. And then I went from completely neutral to, wow, this is pretty cool.
So, leads to this fucking much more highly likely scenario of the individual exposing themselves to these, ridiculous dosages of these compounds that aren't really supposed to be used in humans. Like, I guess, at a time, they were, of course, trenbolone was prescribed to women, people who actually needed it for, muscle wasting conditions and whatnot. And nandrolone is prescribed too, so maybe that's a bit inaccurate to be saying, but in general, like they're not bioidentical is a more, accurate representation of them. So these things that are operating through not just agonizing the androgen receptor and increasing muscle protein synthesis, but as well agonizing the progesterone receptor very significantly leads to big changes neurologically that can affect sexual preference. And this is, again, these receptors, think about it like this. Testosterone naturally being produced is what is essentially responsible for building muscle tissue in your body. When you agonize the androgen receptor, obviously there are a bunch of other downstream cascades that lead to, muscle protein, satellite cell proliferation, all these things, myonuclear donation, like all these different concepts that kind of, are things that lead to, actual contractile tissue accrual. But ultimately, the hormone that is regulating a lot of this stuff is the testosterone binding to the androgen receptor and causing gene transcription at the receptor sites. This is an androgen. When you administer anabolic androgenic steroids, they're non-bioidentical, but they still bind to the androgen receptor and cause similar actions in terms of muscle protein accrual. So even though these progestogens are not actual bioidentical progesterone, they're still binding and agonizing, stimulating the same receptor through their, chemical structure, the way they're designed, and causing the same kind of downstream actions, but at fucking massively heightened expression levels because of the dosage deployed, the affinity / binding constant / all these other fucking million factors. And these compounds are highly fucking potent. So I can imagine when you're using, 300, 400 milligrams of tren, expecting there to be no progesterone activity or progestogenic activity relative to your like super benign, innocuous, fucking barely even noticeable endogenous production of progesterone, like obviously there's gonna be a big giant disparity there, and there's gonna be some neurological changes that result from that. Are they permanent necessarily? You know, I would imagine the younger and more plastic your fucking brain is when you expose yourself to this shit, the more likely this stuff will be permanently, you know, cemented in your kind of like infrastructure neurologically. But again, this stuff is ultimately, I think, what leads to some of this more interesting behavior from a sexual aspect that you will not see as much with things like, you know, like a straight testosterone perhaps. Now, is it guaranteed that this is gonna happen? You know, where your sexual appetite, you know, deviates more towards, you know, homosexuality or somewhere in the middle or like whatever the fuck? Not necessarily. You know, you might have something else happen. Who the hell knows, you know? Or it might do absolutely nothing. Some people, when they use like Tren or Deca, you know, they get like lower libido. You know, it's not guaranteed to have this happen, but there is definitely a mechanism for it. And I think this is what it is in the individuals that are susceptible / have a likely outcome of this happening. So anyways, that is my explanation of the science. Hopefully you found it interesting. Some insight into trenbolone that maybe you wouldn't have considered, because a lot of people just think it's some god steroid that makes you recomp and it gives you shitty sleep and it makes you sweat at nighttime and it's bad for blood pressure, rips out your hair, blah, blah, blah. But it also does a lot of other things, you know, increases aggression, you know, it's one of the main things it's known for. But again, a lot of people don't realize some of the interactions it has are totally fucking segregated from the traditional androgen receptor vector. And there is a lot of satellite interaction with other receptors in the body. You know, trenbolone, again, massive, one of the most potent antagonists of glucocorticoid receptors, and why it's so potent at anti-catabolic activity, why it's so great in a deficit. This is another thing that separates it from other compounds and makes it more unique. There's a lot of shit that often goes overlooked when it comes to this stuff, and ultimately understanding what you're using is what's going to, you know, put you in the best position to mitigate / attenuate, you know, any side effects when they crop up, or just not take the shit to begin with if you don't want to encounter, you know, the potential outcomes that may come your way when you use it. So anyways, that is the breakdown. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do we have any individuals here that had their sexual preferences significantly altered when they use these compounds? Any and all fucking insight, you know, it's educational, it's interesting, and it's much appreciated. I'm sure a lot of
Tuna fish is a very diverse saltwater fish that belongs to the Scombridae family, commonly called the mackerel group. However, tuna belongs to a tribe called Thunini. This tribe contains 15 species of tuna, most of which are enjoyed around the world in culinary traditions. This variety of fish are typically anywhere from 1 foot in length to 15 feet for a fully grown, long-lived example. While most of these fish live for 3 to 5 years, some have been known to live for more than 2 decades. They regularly make long migration across the oceans, sometimes thousands of miles in length, due to mating and changing seasons. Tuna fish of varying species are found in all of the world oceans, and while different cultures enjoy different varieties, the health benefits are largely the same. Their delicious taste, global availability, and healthy components make them an ideal replacement for red meat, or for those who like to add some healthy fish variety to their diets. Nutritional value of tuna fish. The health benefits of tuna fish can be attributed to the impressive content of vitamins, minerals, and organic compounds found in this delicious fish. These include antioxidants and protein, without much saturated fat or sodium. It also has impressive levels of selenium, phosphorus, iron, magnesium, and potassium, according to the USDA National Nutrient Database. In terms of vitamins, there is a wealth of vitamin and organic compounds found in this delicious fish. These include antioxidants and protein, without much saturated fat or sodium. It also has impressive levels of selenium, phosphorus, iron, magnesium, and potassium, according to the USDA National Nutrient Database. In terms of vitamins, there is a wealth of vitamin B12 and niacin, as well as a good amount of vitamin B6 and riboflavin. Let's take a look at 13 major health benefits of tuna fish. Number 1. Improves heart health. Perhaps the most common health benefit that is attributed to tuna fish is its significant impact on heart health. In terms of reducing coronary heart diseases, this fish has high levels of omega-3 fatty acids, which help reduce omega-6 fatty acids and LDL, or bad cholesterol, in the arteries and blood vessels. Furthermore, it often replaces foods with high saturated fat content, further lowering the risk of heart diseases. Number 2, reduces blood pressure. The anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids can help reduce blood pressure. Potassium found in tuna is a vasodilator and is very good for lowering blood pressure. Reducing hypertension can significantly boost your health by lowering the strain on your cardiovascular system. This will help prevent heart attacks and strokes, as well as conditions like atherosclerosis. Number 3, protects the eyes. Tuna fish, being rich in omega-3 fatty acids, is a great option for preventing eye disorders like age-related macular degeneration. Paul A. Sieving, MD, PhD, director of the National Eye Institute, NEI, and John Paul Sangiovanni, SCD, were involved in a comprehensive research study on dietary omega-3 fatty acids in protecting against the development and progression of retinal disease. This disease is the major reason behind the occurrence of blindness in elderly people. The blindness is also caused due to diabetic complications, and this fish can help in reducing the chances of diabetic retinopathy. Number 4, growth and development. Tuna fish is packed with high levels of protein. A single serving of only 165 grams, approximately 1 can of tuna fish, contains more than 80% of your daily protein requirement. Proteins are the building blocks of our body that guarantee growth, faster recovery from wounds and illnesses, improved muscle tone, and overall metabolic efficiency. Number 5, aids in losing weight. Tuna fish is low in calories and fat, yet loaded with beneficial nutrients like protein. The omega-3 fatty acids found in this fish stimulate a hormone called leptin, which balances the body's food intake with the internal desire to eat more. This can reduce overeating and make sure that your body is only consuming what it actually needs. Number 6, strengthens immune system. Tuna contains a good amount of vitamin C, zinc, and manganese, all of which are considered antioxidant in nature. Antioxidants are one of the body's defense mechanisms against free radicals, the harmful byproducts of cellular metabolism that cause chronic diseases. However, the real champion of tuna's immune system boosting potential is selenium. This fish is rich in this mineral, giving nearly 200% of the daily requirement in a single serving. This makes the fish a very powerful antioxidant and immune-boosting food. Number 7, boosts energy. The B-complex vitamins in tuna have been connected with a wide range of health aspects. They are mainly involved in boosting the metabolism, increasing the efficiency of organs, protecting the skin, and boosting energy levels. By consuming this fish regularly, you can ensure that you are active, energetic, and healthy. Number 8, improves blood circulation. Tuna is a rich source of iron, along with the B-complex vitamins that play an important role in red blood cell formation. Without iron, people become anemic, and their blood is unable to oxygenate the vital organs that need fresh oxygen to function efficiently. Number 9, contains anti-cancer properties. Tuna fish has antioxidant properties thanks to selenium and other nutrients, making it effective at preventing some types of cancer. In the American Association for Cancer Research, a study titled A 22-Year Prospective Study of Fish, N3 Fatty Acid Intake, and Colorectal Cancer Risk in Men, suggested that fish consumption, especially the fatty fish variety, may decrease the risk for colorectal cancer. Number 10, prevents kidney diseases. The potassium and sodium content in tuna is well balanced, which helps manage the fluid balance in the body. When your body maintains a fluid balance, the kidneys function properly, thereby lowering the chances of developing serious kidney conditions. Number 11, diminishes inflammation. Tuna fish can keep the body's overall stress levels down by reducing inflammation, thanks to the anti-inflammatory vitamins and minerals. A reduction in inflammation across the body ensures an enhanced functioning of all organs. It also helps prevent inflammatory diseases like arthritis and gout, both of which afflict millions of people around the world. Number 12, improves cell membrane protection. When tuna fish is cooked, the proteins in it begin to break down into fragments called peptides. These fragments can actually be powerful antioxidants that specifically target cell membranes, keeping them healthy, strong, and functioning properly. Free radicals often attack membranes throughout the body, including those in the brain, so eating cooked tuna and improving membrane protection is a very good idea. Number 14, fighting depression. Intake of tuna is good for relieving depression. Findings of a research study suggest that fish consumption may be beneficial for women's mental health. It can also reduce depression levels in women. Tips for enjoying tuna fish. The taste of tuna fish makes it perfect for eating as a steak, as a spread with mayonnaise on crackers or bread, in salad and burger, or any of the other varieties. It is versatile, delicious, inexpensive, and healthy. Word of caution. The most common danger of eating too much of this fish is the risk of mercury poisoning. But as the above-mentioned studies are hinting at, this may not be as much of a health problem as we thought, as long as you are eating fresh, unprocessed tuna. Other than that, tuna is a wonderfully delicious and beneficial part of any diet. Time to go fishing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to stay updated with our videos of food and nutrition.
Easy Wheels started as my college project, and we now sell our wheel covers all around the world.
Easy Wheels is a brand where we collaborate with really cool brands like Disney, Barbie, Hello Kitty to design really colourful wheel covers for wheelchairs.
A video that we made totally blew up, and it got 3 million views in a day and 13 million views in a week. And things just exploded for us. So we've been featured in Vogue magazine, Teen Vogue, Elle, Cosmopolitan. We were named on Forbes 30 Under 30, Oprah magazine, TechCrunch, and the list just goes on and on. We knew it was time to turn this into a real business. Setting up our website with Wix was so effortless, so it meant that we could really focus on our art. We worked with Barbie on creating these little mini wheel covers for their new wheelchair Barbie's chair, and we created full-size ones for children and adults' wheelchairs.
I knew that children growing up now would be able to see themselves in these wonderful toys.
As an entrepreneur, it's really crucial to be able to build a brand that can scale worldwide. We're happy to have Wix alongside us as we scale into a larger business and do it smoothly.
And I would eat 300 to 400 grams of protein a day.
Up to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight.
I may even go closer to 1.3 grams.
Right now, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
0.82 grams per pound of body weight.
0.75 grams.
0.4 grams times your body weight.
1 gram of protein for every 1 pound of body weight.
A lot of people will say that. It's actually not true.
Protein intake of 1.2 grams, kilograms a day.
Wait.
Protein
you said
supplementation.
1.2.
No, I said 1.6. Didn't I?
Obviously, there's a lot of conflicting information about protein out there. So in this video, I want to condense all the best science-based information down to give you a final answer on every protein-related question you've ever asked. First, when it comes to general health, the World Health Organization recommends just 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or 0.36 grams per pound. So an 80 kilo, or roughly 180 pound person would only need about 65 grams of protein per day. This is pretty hard to miss on a typical Western diet. I mean, this ground turkey and rice bowl with a glass of milk has 65 grams of protein, and that would have me covered for the day. However, this recommendation doesn't consider weight training, and many protein experts have called for an increase, given the abundance of evidence showing health benefits with higher protein intakes. And the sports nutrition research is perfectly clear in showing that this amount of protein simply won't be enough to support, much less maximize muscle growth. For that goal, we'll need more. Now, just how much you need depends on if you're bulking, cutting, or doing a recomp phase, and these ranges apply to both men and women. If you're bulking, your body is well fed, meaning it's much less likely to break down muscle tissue as a fuel source. There are plenty of carbs and fats to burn first. For this reason, you generally need less protein when bulking. Here, the best research recommends 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo, or 0.7 to 1 gram per pound per day. And here we can see the trusty old 1 gram per pound rule holding up pretty well as a high-end figure. So if you weigh 180 pounds or 80 kilos, you'd want something between 125 and 180 grams of protein per day when bulking. On the other hand, if you're cutting, your body's not only getting fewer calories from food, you also have less body fat and less glycogen as fuel reserves. Therefore, your body is much more likely to break down muscle tissue as a source of calories. To offset this, the best data suggests increasing protein intake while cutting to 1.8 to 2.7 grams per kilo, or 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound. And this time, we can see that the classic 1 gram per pound rule sits in the middle of the range. If you're already very lean and training very hard, you'll want to err toward the upper end, but if you have more body fat and are training more recreationally, the lower end will be plenty. Thirdly, when on a recomp phase, you're trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time while setting your calories around maintenance intake. So I think most people can simply use the same protein figures as when bulking, because at maintenance, you're also at a low risk of muscle loss as long as your training is on point. However, there may be some advantages to going a bit higher on a recomp phase, especially if you're in a slight deficit or are more advanced. In the past, I've used this sliding model as a guide for recomp because it uses lean body mass instead of total body weight, making it more individualized, especially for those who hold more body fat. However, the extra step of subtracting your body fat did confuse some people, so these days I've come up with a simpler solution via researcher Eric Helms. If you're overweight or obese, you can simply aim for 1 gram of protein per centimeter in height. So if you're 6 foot or 183 centimeters tall, you'd want around 183 grams of protein. This works shockingly well, especially if you're at a higher body fat. The answer to the question, how much protein can you absorb in a single meal, is all of it. Your body can absorb an enormous amount of protein in a single meal, more than you could even comfortably eat. But absorption simply refers to the passage of nutrients from the small intestine into the bloodstream. Just because protein is being absorbed doesn't mean it's being used to build muscle. So the real question is, how much protein can you use in a single meal? And this is where there's some controversy. The earliest research suggested that 20 to 25 grams of protein in a single meal was all you needed to max out the anabolic response, and going above that didn't do anything extra for muscle growth. However, I'm skeptical of this figure. First, on the anecdotal side, there's a huge intermittent fasting community who seem to be getting plenty jacked from just eating 1 or 2 meals per day with upwards of 50 to 100 grams of protein per meal. It does seem unlikely to me, given their muscularity, that most of that protein is going to waste for these folks. Second, more recent research has challenged the idea of a 20 to 25 gram upper limit. This 2016 study showed higher muscle protein synthesis with 40 grams of whey versus 20 grams of whey after a full body workout. And this 2016 study showed greater muscle protein synthesis from a meal of beef containing 70 grams of protein versus 35 grams of protein. So the amount of protein we can use per meal isn't clear as of now, but it's likely higher than we used to think. And regardless, I think that your protein intake per meal is clearly much less important than your protein intake per day.
Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you, so you can do not taxes. Intuit TurboTax, 100% expert guaranteed.
Now, despite this, most experts do still suggest that spreading your protein out across 3 to 5 meals is likely best from both a digestion standpoint and for keeping muscle protein synthesis high throughout the day. Still, if you were to eat 2 meals or 6 meals instead, you will still build muscle as long as you're hitting your daily protein target. I just suspect it might not be quite as optimal. Protein quality is partly based on the amount of the amino acid leucine. Leucine is very important because it is the so-called trigger for stimulating mTOR, which then triggers new muscle growth. So let's take a look at how much of different protein sources you need to eat to hit 3 grams of leucine, which is a decent ballpark figure for maximizing the anabolic response to a meal. So in the table here, you can see that whey protein comes out on top. In just 29 grams of whey protein, you'll be getting 3 grams of leucine, and for just 145 calories. You can also get 3 grams of leucine and 40 grams of protein from chicken breast, and that would only cost you about 200 calories. Moving down the list here, you can see that you'd need to eat over 2,000 calories worth of whole wheat bread to hit 3 grams of leucine. So it would take this much bread to give you the same anabolic punch as this scoop of whey protein powder. And as a general trend, animal sources of protein are higher in leucine than their plant-based counterparts, especially per calorie. However, this issue nearly goes away once we introduce vegan protein powders like soy, pea, and brown rice isolates, which also offer 3 grams of leucine for less than 200 calories. But leucine isn't the only factor that matters for protein quality, because even though leucine will always spark the new muscle growth, you still need the other 8 essential amino acids, or EAAs, to actually build the new muscle. For EAAs, we use something called the DIAA score, where the higher the number, the more EAAs that are in that protein source. Once again, you can see that dairy and animal proteins come out on top. But a very important caveat is that these tables all refer to proteins being eaten in isolation. In the real world, people combine various different foods and are almost guaranteed to get enough leucine and enough EAAs by simply getting enough total daily protein. So this isn't something I personally nitpick over, and it's why I think protein quality is actually much less important than many people realize. It's also why leucine, BCAA, and EAA supplementation usually isn't necessary as long as total daily protein is sufficient. However, vegan lifters should be a bit more strategic by either erring toward the higher end of protein ranges and/or supplementing a high-quality, high-leucine protein supplement, such as so-called vegan whey, which combines pea and brown rice protein to give it a similar amino acid profile to whey protein. Many people still believe that if you don't eat protein within 30 minutes after training, your entire session was wasted. But this idea was debunked years ago. In reality, as long as your pre-workout and post-workout meals are within roughly 4 to 6 hours of each other, you'll be maximizing the anabolic response to training. A possible exception to this would be if you train fasted, in which case you should try to consume some protein as soon as you can after your workout. Perhaps a more important but less discussed timing variable is consuming protein before bed. The study from my friend Jorn Trommelen and his colleague Luc van Loon describe pre-sleep protein as an important protein feeding opportunity. They suggest consuming roughly 40 grams of protein before an overnight fast to improve overnight muscle protein synthesis. This is personally what I aim for. Granted, 2 other longitudinal studies that directly tested consuming a slow digesting casein protein either before bed or in the morning found no significant difference after 8 to 10 weeks. However, both of these studies had subjects consuming a very high protein intake overall in the range of 2 grams per kilo, or about 1 gram per pound, once again, highlighting that as long as total daily protein intake is sufficient, these specific timing factors are much less important. There are also no legitimate safety concerns around a high-protein diet in healthy individuals. According to this gigantic position stand from the International Society of Sports Nutrition, there is, quote, no controlled scientific evidence indicating that increased intakes of protein pose any health risks in healthy, exercising individuals. And the amount of protein recommended in this video has been shown over decades to not only be safe, but actually have health benefits, even going way above the recommendations here, as high as 4.4 grams per kilo or 2 grams per pound, has consistently reported no harmful effects. So by far, the most important factor is total daily protein intake. If you're looking to optimize further, you can pay attention to how you distribute your protein throughout the day, with 3 to 5 meals most likely being the anabolic sweet spot. These 2 factors alone will yield more than 90% of your potential results. However, protein quality can be worth keeping in mind, and protein timing may have some benefit from an optimization standpoint, especially if you train fasted or if you have a really long overnight fast. And before we go, I want to quickly shout out my ultimate guide to body recomposition. This is a 267-page book that covers everything on nutrition for muscle gain, fat loss, and specific strategies for how to do both at the same time. It includes sample meal plans and tons of examples for both male and female lifters when it comes to setting up your macros, cardio, supplementation, sleep, and plenty more. So if you're looking to take your nutrition to the next level, you can check it out at jeffnipper.com and use the code PROTEIN to save 25% off. So that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys all here in the next one. Okay, what is going on, everyone? So what follows in this video is a recorded conversation that I had with Alex from the YouTube channel Alpha Destiny. And I know that we have a lot of crossover audience, but for any of you guys who aren't familiar with Alex, he is the founder of outalpha.com, and I think his main claim to fame is his very impressive neck and trap development. And I've actually borrowed quite heavily, especially recently, from his training methodology and his general approach to getting the neck and traps to just explode, which he's had a ton of success with. If you go on his website and check out some of his programs, you'll see that he's had absolutely incredible results, not just himself, but with his clients. And I haven't really seen any collection of transformations like this anywhere. And so I wanted to have Alex on the channel and really talk about some of his approaches. We do focus on training. However, we also talk about the value of staying at a slightly higher body fat percentage as a natural, body recomposition, nucleus overload, and a bunch of other stuff. And you'll see that Alex and I don't necessarily agree on everything, which is fine. I think it's important to sort of keep an open mind and to expose yourself to different strategies in order to create the best possible approach that you can. And since this conversation went so well, I plan to do more recorded conversations or interviews like this on the channel, like I used to. And sometimes I'll interview scientists doing research, and other times I'll interview people who just have had outstanding results with a specific approach. And I think that to confine yourself or to suffocate your view to be so limited as to only look at those approaches which have been validated in the peer-reviewed literature is really a way to leave a lot of gains on the table. And so I think that this conversation with Alex is one that you guys will really benefit from. I know that I've benefited from it a lot already, and I've already been applying many of the principles that we talked about in this call. So I would encourage you guys, if you'd like to listen to the whole thing, watch the whole thing here on YouTube. There are some demonstrations where I think the visuals will be enlightening. However, I know it's a lot to sit down and stare at a screen for 90 minutes. So if you guys would like to tune into the audio portion only, I'm going to upload this on my podcast. So for those of you who don't know, it's called the Ice Cream for PRs podcast, and it's available on iTunes and Stitcher, and I'll have more information about that linked in the description box below. So without further ado from me, I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Alpha Destiny. All right, what is going on, everyone? So I am here with Alex from the channel Alpha Destiny for a much anticipated, highly requested collaboration. Alex, how you doing, man?
Fantastic, Jeff. How are you?
Good, man. I'm glad we finally got the chance to do this. When I said we'd be doing a call, people were freaking out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to our chat and sharing this knowledge and wisdom, you know?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it myself, and I will say I'm a fan of the content. I'm a bit of a new fan. Ever since I started putting out a lot of my own neck and trap training on the channel, I've had a lot of people direct me toward your stuff. So probably, I want to say maybe like 6 months, maybe a little bit more than that ago, I just started binge watching a bunch of your content. So
okay, that's pretty awesome, man.
This is as much for me as the people.
Nice.
So Alex, just in case there's some people maybe who aren't familiar with you and your approach, I'd say we get started with basically you can just outline your naturally enhanced philosophy. That's something I hear you talk a lot about. Or if you'd like to go off into some of your other training stuff, I'll let you have the floor.
Right. Okay, so basically I follow a system called Naturally Enhanced. I wrote it myself. It's a full body, twice a week training system. And I use what is, well, obviously you know what periodization is. I follow concurrent periodization. And that essentially includes a weekly intensity workout and a weekly volume workout. Now, the whole system revolves around developing 6 essential muscle groups, which I've identified to be the most important for looking massive as a drug-free lifter. These areas include the neck, traps, upper back, shoulders, forearms, and glutes. Now, when you strategically develop these muscle groups, this is really what's going to add to your frame. This is the mass portion. This is what makes you look big in clothing. It's what you notice when a guy bulks up. It's what you notice in a guy who uses performance-enhancing drugs. Because of the androgen receptor sensitivity, it increases greatly with this drug usage. And you'll typically see a lot of guys who are enhanced. They have massive traps, very wide neck, bolder shoulders, things of that nature. So the whole thing behind the naturally enhanced philosophy is to develop these 6 essential muscle groups through using strength training strategies. Now, I use full body training because it allows me to be in the gym only twice a week, actually, while having a life. It would be the same thing if I ran a push-pull legs and upper lower, but full body is my preference. And I utilize concurrent periodization, which I can discuss more about that later. But essentially, I rotate special exercises that are specific to developing these 6 essential muscle groups, and I do that on a weekly basis. And we could talk more about that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to dig into a lot of that. But One thing that I do like about this approach is that it's quite unique. I don't know if it's unique to you, but it isn't something I hear a lot of people talking about, especially not in natural bodybuilding spheres. You hear a lot of people emphasizing, you know, like the chest,
The
quads,
chest and the arms.
You don't hardly ever really, it seems to be gaining some traction in terms of popularity, but as of a year or two ago, you'd hardly hear anyone talking about directly training the neck. And the traps are almost seen as something that, well, if you don't take juice, you might as well give up on those because there's not enough androgen receptor there for them to grow anyway. So these have, I think, historically become very neglected body parts. And
absolutely,
you're kind of running a little bit counterculture, which I happen to enjoy because you see so much of the same sort of regurgitated, redundant information out there, and I find like you're presenting a very, I guess, different, unique approach with your naturally enhanced philosophy. So
it's certainly flipping the script around. You know, whereas most people want to be shredded and look good with their clothes off, for me it's the opposite. You know, and whereas most lifters want to have just chest and arms, beach muscles, we're kind of doing the opposite thing. But it really is important. You know, the neck and the trap area especially. Like people don't realize what it does when you're just looking at someone face to face. Like when you see a jacked guy, man, it's neck and traps. You know, you're not looking at his chest and arms for the most part. I mean, you are there, but like, if I'm speaking to you face to face,
you, sport.
We know you're still sleeping, but we know that we'll all be reunited in the colony that you built.
If you were trapped in a city where a cloud of toxic mist flooded the streets that will kill you if inhaled, what would you do? Paris has turned into a death trap, so I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the toxic mist in a breath away. This man is going to regret being French. Arriving in Paris on a plane, Matt here travels back home to reunite with his family after a long trip to Canada. He leaves all of his belongings at home and goes downstairs to help this elderly man here. It's his sickly neighbor, and neither of them realize that soon, more than 1 million people in Paris are going to die. When he comes back up, Matt's greeted by his wife Anna, who tells him that she's currently busy working online and can't talk right now. He walks into his daughter's room to say hello, and finds her inside this oxygenated enclosure. Sarah has a severe autoimmune disease that forces her to live her life in this small bubble. She's never seen the outside world and likely never will. He hands her a present through a small hatch, and when the girl opens it, she finds several scent vials inside. Taking one of them out, she discovers an SD card hidden underneath and inserts it into a VR headset, giving her an amazing view of the Canadian countryside and ultra-realistic detail. It's the only time she gets to experience the outside world, but that's going to change very soon. After her dad leaves, she chats with her friends online who suffer from the same condition that she does. Her female friend hangs up on the group conversation to talk to her crush. The boy Noah complains, saying that she does this all the time, but he doesn't realize that Sarah here has a crush on him as well. Meanwhile, Matt approaches his wife after she finishes her work to discuss some important matters. He tells her that he was in Canada and found something that might help their daughter's condition. However, it would mean interrupting their life here and moving to Canada. His wife insists they wait for more information, but he tells her it's now been 12 years since her daughter has been trapped in her sterile tube. He doesn't want her to wait any longer and miss out on her life, with no idea that he'll never get a chance to see it. Later, while Matt's taking a shower, a news report announces that an earthquake hitting Denmark and Sweden measured 6.7 on the Richter scale. That's when he feels a shaking sensation like never before. An earthquake hits the city, causing the furniture to shake and the power to turn off. Matt gives Sarah a call on a walkie-talkie to make sure that her tank is safe, and checks outside to see what's going on. He sees people running around as sirens blare in the distance, and soon, something terrible is about to happen which will change their lives forever. Everyone starts panicking as massive clouds of toxic mist begin to spread throughout the streets of Paris. The man sprints back into his house and grabs his wife, who's currently with Sarah. However, they're forced to leave their daughter in the home until they figure out what's going on. They run upstairs and into their elderly neighbor's apartment, who have no idea what's happening. Worried, Anna calls their daughter, who tells them that she's completely fine. They check outside to see the extent of the damage, and find that the mist has risen nearly all the way to the top balcony. It's absolutely terrifying, and they're lucky to even be alive. The couple try to figure out what caused it, but can't come up with any logical conclusions. Seeing helicopters flying overhead, they decide to go back inside since the mist is nearly reaching the floor of the balcony. Anna calls the daughter to find out how long until the enclosure runs out of power, and Sarah tells her she has 4 bars left. This means that if the mist doesn't dissipate within 10 hours, she will suffocate and die. Matt decides to climb up to the roof to get a better view of the city, but it's a horrifying sight. He finds that his surroundings are shrouded in the toxic mist, with barely any signs of human life still around, and the city streets impossible to see. Using his binoculars, he spots a pair of survivors climbing on the roof just like him, and realizes that the situation is looking worse by the second. Okay, so in this version of the world, the oxygen levels have gone so bad that certain children aren't able to live and breathe outdoors. Earthquakes are happening in locations that don't historically have fault lines, and Matt and the old man with an oxygen tank even discuss how bad the environment is getting before the earthquake strikes. Preparing for something like this to happen by purchasing survival resources and a natural disaster stockpile of food and water earlier probably would have been a good idea, especially since Matt has a daughter that can't live outside of her tank. It's hard to know what exactly is wrong with Sarah, because her condition is described as being allergic to the outdoors and doesn't exist exist in reality. But what we do know is that she has to be in a hermetically sealed tank, which keeps out any and all airflow and gases. Not only can Sarah not breathe the air outside, but her skin may not be able to touch unfiltered air. However, preparing for Sarah to be able to handle the situation or survive her tank malfunctioning isn't hard or expensive in reality. All of the supplies that Sarah would need for her parents to keep her safe in the environment can be found online and for less than $1,000 total. Professional grade hazmat suits complete with self-contained breathing apparatuses can be found online for $150 to $300 depending on the type you decide to purchase. Therefore, not only could they have disaster-proofed their apartment for their own needs, but they could have prepared themselves for Sarah's needs as well. Sure, Matt and Anna need to go up to their neighbor's apartment initially, but by having their own tanks easily on hand, one trip down holding their breath to their own apartment could have saved them all a major headache. Matt and Anna were smart to have gone as high as possible quickly, and they knew to get away from the air without any other warnings, so it's safe to assume something bad happening wasn't totally unexpected and could have been better prepared for. The other thing that Matt and Anna are forgetting is that this is a natural disaster of huge scale, and it's happening all over the world in other countries. Like all natural disasters, aid and resources are usually sent once it's safe for relief teams to do so. Although they don't know how far the gas stretches across the city or the country, the gas has to end somewhere unless the whole world has been covered in it, which means that the French government or other allied countries will be able to deploy rescue helicopters to save people. In reality, this happens all the time with situations like hurricanes and earthquakes. The safest bet and Matt and Anna's best chance of survival is alerting these services of their whereabouts by starting some sort of contained fire on the roof. A flare gun would be the best case scenario, but it's unlikely that they have this since they're so unprepared. Matt climbs down, and the elderly man tells him that his son lives 2 blocks away, but with no phone signal, he can't call him. The neighbor is worried about him when his wife interrupts to ask about when they'll be meeting up with their son. It's strange, and he explains that his wife has memory issues. Matt walks back in to tell Anna what he saw, revealing that there will be no signs of rescue, and it doesn't seem like there will be any for a long time. The elderly man finds a radio and tries to fix it up, however, he can't seem to get it to work. Matt decides to take a look outside the front door, touching the mist in the stairwell, and finding it has no effect on his skin. He walks back in and talks to his wife about Sarah. They would have to hold their breaths for 4 minutes in the mist just to reach their daughter's room, and recharging the enclosure's battery already takes 1 minute. It would be completely impossible to do it without dying. That's when Matt realizes that his sickly neighbor has an oxygen supply, and he lives on the floor below them. He opens the window and climbs down a pipe, ending up in his friend's apartment. Looking around, he sees that his neighbor has died from the mist, but continues searching. The man is about to take a breath any second now, but just in the nick of time, he finds an oxygen tank and ventilator. Using it, he quickly puts the ventilator on his mouth to save himself from suffocating. That's when he hears his wife calling his name and walks to the window, telling her that he found oxygen and is going to replace Sarah's battery. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise in the other room, and as soon as he opens the door, a puppy comes running out. But something is wrong. There's an adult dog also inside the room, but it's lying dead on the floor. For some reason, the puppy is immune to the effects of the mist, and he'll soon find this out the hard way. With time of the essence, Matt makes his way back to his daughter's room. He passes her a care package and tells her that he has to leave immediately because he's running out of oxygen. The man plugs a spare battery into the enclosure and reassures the girl he'll be back. When he leaves the apartment, he takes a quick look on the city streets. Dead bodies are scattered on the pavement, and there are no signs of human life anywhere. He checks inside the cars for supplies, and that's when he hears a loudspeaker in the distance.
We could fly to such great heights. Oh, the places we'll go. Oh, the places this world has to show. So let's get lost in the great.
Book now and enjoy great rates.
Okay, Matt here is not thinking clearly. It makes absolutely no sense